Just to explain again, why is it showing up on top? Because it's time sensitive. Like it either has to be set now or doesn't have to be set anymore. That's why it sort of like becomes a prioritized check of like a thing that indicates take an action now. Once it disappears, if the nice, you see there's 0 unread chats, right? The nice just disappeared, so the account goes back into its place where it belongs, which is somewhere up here, down here in the 0 unread chats. So remember, on top are always showing up the most prioritized chats. Observing, right. Observing means that the table is open. I'm just going to open up. The table is open, so the account opened the table, but it did not request to buy in or do anything else. It's literally just sitting there observing. Why is it doing that? There's different reasons for it. We don't have to get into it, but just know that we're not sitting on the table, we're not buying in or anything, we're literally just like watching the table. The gave warning sign. So I'm gonna get into it a little bit now, but I'm gonna get, maybe I should explain it right now already, like in great detail. So when we're playing poker, the idea is that there is some rules around the game, how people behave. Just like you have social rules in normal life. And it is, for example, very common when I go to a friend's house that when he opens the door that we say hello, we might shake hands, we might hug, right? But we have some form of greeting when we see each other. And then there's things like another social thing to do is if someone sneezes, someone might say, bless you, and then the person says thank you, right? So there's like those things that are sort of like rules of some sort of like how we are with each other. What do we say in this situation? What do we say in that situation? Like I said, when I meet someone, I greet them. When I leave someone's house, I might say, hey, I'm leaving soon now, and I'm shaking someone's hand again and leaving throughout the door. On poker tables, there's something similar going on. When people leave the table, they might say something like good game. They might, just however they're leaving the table, there's like different ways of doing it. But in some cases, in the clubs you're playing, I'd say half the clubs or more have very specific rules we actually have to follow, right? And those rules in most cases are just all around when you can leave the table. There's nothing you have to do when you get onto the table. There's nothing particular you have to say while you're playing. But when you're leaving the table, there's very specific rules around it. There's something, for example, called hit and run. So most of these rules when you're leaving the table have to do with the hit and run rule, which means that when you're winning, they don't want you to just get up and leave. They want you to give everyone else a warning and the chance to actually win some of the money back, right? So what ends up happening is many of those clubs have a rule, for example, let's say if you're winning, you have to let the table know 15 minutes ahead of time that you're going to be leaving. So some other clubs might say 10 minutes, some other clubs might say you have to play 30 hands. So there's like, so we have all of this recorded in exactly specific things, but the general idea is when you're winning, and it's not just only when you're winning, there's also like different ones, but it's usually around when you're winning, you gotta give the table a warning, you gotta let them know that you're leaving soon, and that will be something that also shows up in a chat suggestion, right? Meaning that it will look like this. We're winning some certain amount of money. The club rule says if you're winning, you have to give them a heads up of 15 minutes, right? And when the scheduler is basically ready to get the account up because it either played too long or it won too much or whatever reasons the scheduler has to say, okay, this account is basically about to be done. It should get up from the table soon. If the club has a rule, it will sort of start blinking and saying, give warning now, right? And when it says give warning now, let me see if it has an example actually here. Get up now warning. Get up late, let me see. I think it does. No. Table is waiting, we can just stand. So that's not true. Let's see, it's a gave warning or give warning? Gave warning, okay. Okay, I'm a little bit surprised that we don't have an example here. I have to put this in. But give warning will basically, the thing will start blinking here, right? The account someplace. And it will show very clearly, give the warning now. And when it says give warning now, it will usually have a chat suggestion that will suggest what you should say. And they all look different. They might say, I'm leaving in 5 minutes, I'm leaving in 20 minutes, I'm leaving in 10 hands, I'm leaving in 30 hands, I'm leaving soon, got to run soon, have something to do, gotta go, soon enough, and so on and so forth. There's like many, many different ways of how we are telling the table that we're leaving very soon. And when essentially you click on a chat suggestion and you send it out, then the system recognizes that you gave a warning and starts a hand count, which you can see here. We gave a warning 10 out of 15 hands ago, meaning that after we give the warning, we have to stay 15 hands on the table here, and 10 hands ago we gave the warning. So what will happen is that once the account will reach 15 out of 15 hands, this table will start blinking and saying, get up now, this account is ready to leave. And that will look like, get up now, like this, get up now. And underneath the get up now, it will say why is it basically getting up? In this case, table is waiting for too long. Table is waiting for 200 seconds, which is larger than 160 seconds, so we're getting up. And then also you should really, really read this every time you're doing this, because it sort of includes all of the information you need to know in order to know if you're doing something right or wrong. So in this case, it says get up now, table's waiting, we can just stand, right? It doesn't say you have to give another warning or something. In some cases, it will say you have to give another warning. So read the text precisely and make sure you understand what it's saying. Get up now delayed. So this happens. So we give a warning. We tell the table we're getting up very soon. Right? Then we reach the hand number at which we should get up, but then the account is not giving you a get up warning, like actually just get up the account notification. There's a few reasons for it. So remember the get up, so the idea of giving the warnings is because it has to do with the hit and run rule. So they don't want you to win a big pot or just be winning a lot and then leaving the table shortly after. So what happens is we gave a warning and said we're going to leave in 20 minutes or something. The 20 minutes are over. But then right around the 20 minutes, maybe 4 minutes before, whatever it is, a couple hands earlier, we won another big pot. So now, some of those clubs, the rule is that if you win another big pot, you have to stay even longer. You can't just get up and leave. And so in this case, you might see an account that says, gave warning 25 out of 20 hands ago, so you would expect that the system flashes and says, let's go, let's get up. But it doesn't. It's because this probably has something to do with the fact that we won another big pot, and we're not supposed to get up for another 10, 15 minutes, whatever the rule is, right? So this is something important for you to know, that you're not too surprised and say, wait a minute, I'm supposed to get up now, but it's not giving me the notifications, why not? Usually when you will look into the chat, you will find the answer in the system messages. It might, or the game event messages, it might show that we won a big pot, and so on and so forth. But it's not saying here right now why it's delayed. Maybe something that this we implement into the future, that it says gave warning, but we have to stay a bit longer because we want another big pot or whatever it is. There's also a get up delay example number 2. Let's see. Gave warning 25 out of 20 hands ago. Get up now, stack too big, warning cleared, never need to rewarn. This is not delayed, this is incorrect. So whatever this here is saying, this is not a right example. I'm going to delete this because it clearly says, get up now. It doesn't say, get up a little bit later, we have to wait because we want a big pot and so on and so forth. So this is important, by the way. Usually when the system is telling you something to do, you have to follow it. Unless you would find a really good reason not to do it, because the system can be sometimes showing something it shouldn't be showing, right? So we have to pay close attention. We can't just 100% trust the system, but essentially if you don't have a really good system to a really good reason to override what the system is telling you, because you noticed something that the system might have not, someone complained, someone said something, someone said in the chat you have to stay 10 minutes longer, you can't leave right now, things like this, follow the system. Like, you can't ignore what it's saying to you. If it says get up now and you're just not doing it for 10-15 minutes, that is a big mistake. Okay. CT time. This is something I'm going to get into later when I explain another section, because CT is one form of giving warning, but it's a very special form. It essentially requires that we ask for our call time. We say something in chat. It's just basically CT, and then the host will reply with exactly when we can get up the account. We'll get to that process in a little bit. Oh, here, and the rewarn, yes. So here it's describing if we already gave a warning, we're about to leave the table, then sometimes it can happen that we win a big pot and we have to do another warning. So it can be that we just like basically delay and just don't get up. That might be like one of the rules, is that you just like stay a bit longer. But some clubs specifically say you have to tell the table another 20 minutes that you're staying, right? So there's the part where we're just like getting up late, meaning that we're not getting up at the hand that the system originally wanted to get up. We're just, waiting another 5 to 10 minutes. And then there's some clubs that basically say you have to give another warning when you're winning, when you won in a time period you're waiting to get up on the table. So that means that there will be another chat suggestion that will say, hey, I really have to leave in 20 minutes, or whatever it will say. So those are it. And there's different reasons to getting up, and I kind of want to just show you guys that when it says get up now, what are the different reasons underneath that it can say. For example, get up now, always the same message. No bad players at the table. At table for enough hands. No warning needed, can stand up. I'm not sure what, it's not proper English, but anyhow, it says no bad players at the table, meaning that there's some tables where the players that we're playing against might be significantly better than we are, right? They might be winning against us, so we kind of want to get up from the table. The table is preparing for too long. A preparing table is a table where people are sitting on the table, the game has not started yet. So they're trying to kick off the game. And to kick off the game, they usually need a minimum amount of players. Some clubs, they say, we'll kick the table off with 5 players. Some say with 6, some say with 2, right? Whatever the rule of the club is, however they're handling it, it is what it is. But the idea is they're opening a new table, some people are sitting down to play, but they're never kicking off the table. And so we're leaving those tables after some amount of time. Whatever the time is that we said we're going to do it, that's what we do. So the system's telling you, get up now, the table is preparing for too long, we can just stand. Then there might be the tables waiting for too long. So there's a difference between waiting and preparing. A waiting table usually means that the table, they were playing on the table, right? But they paused the table, meaning that maybe they were having 9 players and then went down to 4 players, and the 4 players decided that they're not going to continue playing until they get a 5th player in again. So then they're pausing the table. And when the table is paused for too long, it's also a moment where we just get up. So that could be a reason. Lost too much, won too much, so they count, basically, if you can see here, get up now, lost too much, 560 big blinds, larger than 500, we are broke, we can just stand. It's the opposite is true too. Sometimes we just won too much money and we have to get up. So what I sort of wanted to point out with showing you guys this example is that there's different reasons for getting up, and the notifications usually state what the reason is, right? So you can see it. I've had a lot of times questions where people say, hey, should we get up the account now? And it says get up the account now, and even says the reason underneath. So if you were just to read it clearly, in most cases you will just know what's going on and you can follow it and just make sense of it. Alright, let's head to section number 3. While I was recording the first two, section number 3 had a slight change to what it used to be before. So for all the operators that already have been familiar with it, I'll just explain what the difference is. Yep. So the difference between those two, so this is the old version. The chats, so when we mark a chat red, meaning that we say this, we have read the chat until here, and move on to the next one, there's going to be a line separating essentially with the new chats, the chats that we have seen and the chats that we have not seen yet, which used to be this line over here with Karaoke Junkie, right, like with the big red box in it, and it would separate it. The new version separates it just with a red line and says new messages, right, with an arrow down there. And the information that used to be displayed in the red box is now displayed right below the chat box, where we basically like write our response to consent, right? Or a message box, I'm not sure how to call it. Which is pretty much the same information, so I'll get to it in just a little bit. And also the unread chats now have a slightly different color. It's going to be a bit hard to see here, but I will just go into the chat mon, go to an unread chat up here, and then maybe this, see, you can see here it's black and here it's sort of like bluish, right? Mm-hmm. So you can clearly see which chats you haven't read and which one you have read. We will improve over time. So all those things that are changing right now, so one reason I'm making videos in different sections is because in the future, I assume one of the sections changes enough for it that a new video is due, right? And so instead of like explain the whole chatmon in 2.5 hours and having to redo this, I just do it in sections and only have to do a 20-minute video, which is great. So let's go here and and then talk about the chat and what you can see in the section. So the chat is essentially is split into 3 different types of messages you're gonna see. Number 1 would be the system messages. Number 2 would be game event messages. And number 3 is the player chats. Now, what is the difference between those? The system messages, which are looking like this, let me just open it up and zoom in. So they're all orange, have an orange triangle in it. And so what the system messages do, they are essentially describing what our system is doing, right? So like the different steps that are all happening in the background. You can't see it. So when you're logged into the app and you, for example, click on the lobby, then you're moving from wherever you started into the lobby, right? Or even let's start simple, which is a good example here. You're logging into the app, right? You press the button to log in, it logs you in, and you just show up and you're inside the app. The system would describe what it's doing. It's logging in, right? And then from the app, you would like go, the next step usually is from there, you're looking you're going to the club list. So one account can be in multiple clubs. And there's a specific section in order to like go and play someplace, you have to go to your club list first, select the right club, like enter the right club, look for a table, and so on and so forth, right? And so even here, the system is describing it's going to the club lobby. It's joining a room, which means it's joining a table, right? Now we are on the table. Now we will try to sit with 2,000 chips, right? Now we're waiting for the buy-in authorization and so on. So whatever you would navigate naturally through the app and do things, sort of what is happening, what the system is doing, it's describing in here, like those types of things. It's describing things like we're choosing a seat, we're taking a seat from the queue, right? Or up here, we were even in the queue, we were number 1 on the waiting list, essentially, right? Then we're going down here, and we're sitting at seat number 6, and now we're sending that we're ready to play, and all of those things. And it is extremely helpful when you're looking around at the table at times, or in the chat, and you're trying to figure out sometimes what's going on, right? Like it looks like we're not sitting on the table yet. someone is talking to us. But then when you look at the system messages, you will see, oh, we're trying to sit on a table, we're waiting authorization and it hasn't gone through, and so on and so forth. So those things can be helpful essentially to give you an idea what the account is doing right now, like on the system side of it. Then we have something that I call game event messages. The game event messages describe what's happening on the table in the game, right? This has nothing to do with our bot. It's not like about what our bot is doing, this, that, and the other thing. It's describing things like who's sitting down on the table. Let me actually click on this so you can see. Right, so these are all game events. So it would describe, just for example, the hand number 407 finished, right? It describes who won the pot on that hand number. In this case, we won a huge pot with 2 pair. If you look at 408, it says number 408 finished. But then Donkey Slayer won a medium pot, $20, and so on and so forth. So basically, it can describe things like a hand number has specifically finished, who won the pot in that hand and how much they won. Sometimes it would say, if we saw the cards, what value his hand had when he won at the time. It can describe things like someone just sat down, with how many chips they sat down. It can describe that someone stands up from the table, and so on. So it sort of describes, again, what's happening inside the game. Who's coming, who's going, who's winning, how much, which hand is over, and so on and so forth. One thing that's important about the game event messages, so they can, like when someone is talking about previous hands and what happened, and how something like this can be extremely helpful, because you can see if the player is talking about a hand, about his own hand or something, you can see which hand he played, if you won or lost or something like this, right? Actually, if you won, you would be able to see it. But more importantly, you can see whenever we win a pot, you always have the thumbs up emoji next to it. So whenever in the chat something is going on where you feel like it might have to do with like something us winning something big, you can literally look at the game event messages and see if we won a big pot or not and what we had when we won a big pot. In some cases here, we have this like screaming shock smiley. This is something that we display when we lost with good hands. So we lost with aces or we lost with kings. Those are like good hands in poker and so on and so forth. So they're supposed to give you a bit of an idea, maybe a moment we could complain. We're not doing any complaints right now, as of now. Also, I mean, I'm recording the video now, so there's a possibility that when someone watches it in the future, that actually changed. But at least it gives us an idea when we lost with some kind of good hand that we should have expected to win very frequently, and then we did not. So that's what that screaming shock emoji is for, I guess. And then the last thing, the last category that we see in the chat are the player chats, right? So those, they take a lot of our focus, obviously, because we need to be reading what the other people are saying. And so let's start off with the opponents. All of our opponent chats are showing up on the left-hand side. So any chat that you read here on the left-hand side, and I marked them all, they're not us. None of our accounts. All of them, someone else that is not us. And the reason it's going to be important to mention is you're going to see that the location of our own chats are in different places. If I go through a chat mon, just like live right now in action, you can see this is not us, this is not us. The middle one, I'm going to explain this in a moment, this is us, but I'll tell you like what's special about this. This is not us, right, and so on and so forth. You can select all of these accounts. This is not us. All of these people are opponents of ours that we're playing against. Okay. Then we have any messages selected from the account will appear on the right-hand side. Meaning, if this account Dandy Mandy is selected and it speaks, then that chat will appear on the right-hand side. And that will be the truth. Let me just go back here. That will be the truth probably for all chats I can find here. So I selected half Korean. Great name, by the way. Half Korean's chat appears on the right-hand side. Right. So if I pick any other one, let's just keep scrolling through until I find one. There you go. Shack number one appears also on the right hand side. Now, it's important because you know when you set something on the table versus when someone else set it. Now, the chat in the middle, that's a special case when we have multiple accounts of our own on the table, right? So there's 8 seats or 9 or however many seats there are on a poker table. We can be more than one player on the same table. And when we're more than one player, we want to make sure that when the other player, who is yourself in this case, going to be talking in the chat, and you switch accounts to someone else, that the other account from which you're speaking from knows that you know that you just spoke on the same table. So that there won't be like weird conversations possible. There's also, when it comes to giving warning and leaving tables and saying things and so on, this can play a role because you know that you just said this a minute ago with another account. And actually, let me get into the example first before I explain this. So here, so you see that Gozo89, right? If I select the account Gozo89, the chat is up here on the right-hand side. Right underneath Gozo89 is Tornado Tyler. Tornado Tyler is also one of our accounts. He happens to play on the same table. And when he said something, remember we're looking from the perspective of Gozo89. So Gozo89's chat, you can see that Tornado Tyler also said, think I'm out soon, right? So in those cases, you just know that you're talking for both people. So this is you currently, and this is you just a couple minutes later, right, in this case. And what you want to avoid is, for example, saying something like you see that both accounts, this is a prime example, by the way, why it's important to know. Gozo89 and Tornado Tyler both give a warning to people. Sometimes it happens that a system, or our system is saying to give a warning to both accounts that are on the same table within a minute. And sometimes the chat suggestion that account to send in order to give a warning can be precisely the same. It doesn't happen too often, but it can be something that's not normal. It's not like I'm just leaving soon and then the other person says I'm leaving soon, which that's not good either. But sometimes it could be, hey guys, gotta go really soon. And then literally the same chat suggestion comes up for the same table, just for another account. Hey guys, gotta go really soon. So this has to be avoided, right? We cannot send the same chat suggestions back to back with 2 different accounts on the same table. That in the eyes of the players and the clubs and the hosts are not the same player. They don't know each other. They live far away. They have no idea. One lives in LA, one lives in New York, right? And so this should help to like sort of prevent those type of mistakes that could happen if we would have done it differently. If a home player also appears on the left, for example. So now, when you're looking through the chats here, I'm going to go into the live system. They can have different colors. I'm going to show you an example of where it is. So, there you go. So what we do is all of the white chats belong to regular players, right? So they're just a player in a game. That's like the case 99% of the time. There's some exceptions, and I'll get into it why it could be an exception. And then all the accounts that are purple, all the chats that are purple, this is from the current host. So that's an important thing, right? So it belongs to the person, or this is the account of the person who is hosting the table. Now, let's talk about what a host is. Much like in your own house, I don't know, most of you guys are not from the US, so you may or may not have heard it, but I can host a party, for example, at my own house. It means that at my own house, I'm going to prepare, get food, get drinks, and everyone can come to my place. And I'm essentially organizing the party, or an event, could be birthday, whatever it is, right? And I'm hosting the people, right? I give them drinks, I make sure everyone knows where it is. Here's the bathroom. If you need to park over there, and so on and so forth. The host of the table is the person who's organizing the poker game. So he, inside the app, opened the table, set the limits, set how many people can play, set what you can buy in for, set what the time bank is, allows for runner once or twice, and so on and so forth. So he like basically chooses the game settings, opens up the table, and he can choose who can sit on the table. He can kick someone out. He can accept binds or reject binds. He can put someone on the waiting list up and down, right? They can move people from the waiting list from the bottom to the top, and so on and so forth. So the host has essentially, all these capabilities of making decisions inside the game, right? And that person is usually responsible, for the buy-ins, when you need to rebuy, when you need to buy in, this, that, and the other thing, and so on and so forth. That's when a lot of the talks with him happen. But just in general, most of the people that are directly connected with the clubs and are working for the clubs, they may even own the club, own a piece of the club, and so on and so forth. But they're running the games. So their messages are important because when they're saying something, like they're asking us to stand up from the table, or they're asking us to text them, or they're asking us to move it to another table, or whatever they do, it's important that we sort of like collaborate with them and respond to them properly, because after all, they can kick us out, right? They can kick us out of the game, they can kick us out of the club, and we can have all kinds of issues related to that. It's not the case when it's just a player. When a player is just saying something that's ridiculous, we can answer something that's ridiculous, and we're going to be fine. But with the host, we sort of need to understand that he's the organizer of the game, and we have to treat him differently. Now there's one more color for chats, which is the orange color, and the orange color indicates that the person owns the club. So that person is even above the host. He started the club, is running the club, financially probably has the biggest piece of it, right? And so when he says something, it's even more important. So we really pay attention to if the owner wants something, or it needs a response, to make sure that we have a proper response for them. Right. And so the way it works with the chats in here is that, and I think I mentioned this in section 1 video before. So essentially the system works in a way that the most prioritized chats come on top, right? And so the ones that you need to work on. And so once you worked on the chat and you click mark red, so let's say you read those 3 messages and say, there's nothing that I need to respond to. Once you click mark red, that account disappears, and the next most prioritized chat shows up right away. So instead of, what you don't have to do basically is you don't click, then read, say mark red, and then click to the next one, mark red, and then click to the next one, and do the same thing and say nothing I need to do here, mark red. It does it automatically, so it selects the chats. So if I go on Yaka and read those chats, someone else is operating the chat right now, so it's not working precisely, but the idea is if I read those 2 chats and say there's nothing in here that we need to do, mark red, the next one just shows up right away here. I don't have to select anything, it's just right here and there. And so that way, most of the time when you're going through chats to find the things that need response or need an action to be taken, your mouse does not go outside of this section here for the most part until you need to take an action, right? So if you're just reading chats, you would essentially read it, mark red, go to the next one, mark red, go to the next one, mark red. Your mouse is really not moving anywhere. Do you see this? It just sort of stays in this type of section. When you have to take an action, you need to select an account, give a warning, use the action buttons, and so on. Then you're moving out. And the idea of this is because you just keep rotating and just going through chats until you find something of action, it just makes it faster. Right? So if you have to make decisions which account you're going to handle next, this one, or even the clicking motion of it, and moving your eyes from the left to the right and going down and so on and so forth, it sort of just takes a bit more focus, and it's probably also slower on average. Another thing we want to do with this is we sort of also, when you don't have to focus on clicking which account you're going to go next, if you just read the message and see the next one that's selected, with just looking around with your eyes through all of this, right? Like this section and that part, and here you just see if there's some kind of warning or something that's unusual that you might have to pay attention to. So you just like spot check. Or if you select an account, you might see that you just chatted here on the right side and said something, right? Or you see here that one of the other accounts like spoke. So we want you guys to like have this part, the rotation part is so easy that you stay with your mouse just the entire time here. You're not really going anywhere. That with a little bit of extra second that you have, you just scan around the chat and just see that there's nothing that you might be missing, right? Just it's like additional information. If you had to like just go from chat and read to chat and read and so on, you might just like stop looking up here to the top right corner. You might not see some notifications that pop up down here, and so on and so forth. And so it's supposed to just be essentially helping working the rotation of the chat. Right, so below, it's self-explanatory, but essentially you type in here, and then you have to send enter in order to send it. You cannot mark red this button. It's in the beginning, people might confuse it and think that this is the enter button to send the message, but it's not. It's the button to say that you're marking the chat as red, and essentially saying there's nothing I need to do here anymore, and then you move on. So anytime you have to send a message, you type it in and press enter. One thing that's important to know about the chat, this is a box, message box. I'm not sure if you have a misspelling, it underlines it, right click and correct it. That's very helpful because you sort of want to speak clean English, right? And that will help. It won't help with the grammar because you can still put words in the wrong. You can like flip them around, put them in the wrong places. For example, I am cool, I cool am. Then it doesn't correct it, obviously. But if you spell cool with C-O-L, maybe it doesn't work like this, I don't know. Yes, anyhow, so most of the words, at least the longer ones, they do have a correction that you can use with the right click and do it. Right, one important thing for all the people from Brazil, because I see it doing over and over again, they say I am, here, I am, and I keep saying I with a small I. This in America, no one does this, and all of these people are from America, so you got to be careful doing this. Plus, most of these people are playing on their phones, so on their phones they actually have autocorrection as they're typing a text message. So those things, like for example, what's up, right? I can say what's up like this, but on a phone it would autocorrect to what's up, right? And so very important that we sort of mimic the phone environment where we have correct spelling, and none of these mistakes. Right, so let's go down to this section here, which used to be in the red box, but now is here. So the first part is the screen name, or the account name, Ryan Giga 11. There might be, let me see if I took a screenshot of this. It doesn't say, but it shows the accounts with a screen name. If the account name has a star in front of it, it used to have a different name. That goes back to the past mentioned names. Let me just click on the accounts. That should be the case too. You're going to find an account that has a star in front of the name. Ones, they do have a correction that you can use with the right click and do it. Right, one important thing for all the people that are from Brazil, because I see it doing over and over again, they say I am, here I am, and I keep saying I with a small I. This in America, no one does this, and all of these people are from America, so you got to be careful doing this. Plus, most of these people are playing on their phones, so on their phones they actually have autocorrection as they're typing a text message. So those things, like for example, what's up, right? I can say what's up like this, but on a phone it will autocorrect to what's up, right? And so very important that we sort of mimic the phone environment where we have correct spelling, and none of these mistakes. So let's go down to this section here, which used to be in the red box, but now is here. So the first part is the screen name or the account name, Ryan Giga 11. There might be, let me see if I took a screenshot of this. It doesn't say, but it shows the accounts with a screen name. If the account name has a star in front of it, it used to have a different name. That goes back to the past mentioned names. Let me just click a little through the accounts. That should be here the case too. I'm going to find an account that has a star in front of the name. That means that it used to have a different name. Or a past name, if you will. There you go. So Carlitos BNC used to have a past name. In that past name, you're going to find here, there's a little box with an arrow to the top right. When I open this box, it will open the account, it will open additional information about the account and the identity behind the account. So you have to remember this is important. Each account is a person in the eyes of the club and all the players, right? It's in our case, we know that it's not. We're just playing with the software and they have a whole bunch of accounts and we're controlling them from a chatmon and this, that, and the other thing. But in their eyes, it's a person. And the person has a name, has a location he's currently living at, or maybe like lived before, has an occupation of some kind, and so on and so forth. So the importance is when one operator operates the chat and maybe gives some information about the identity away because someone asked them about where do you live, what's your name, then the operator might answer those questions. And obviously when the next operator comes online, he doesn't know that. So if they ask again, what's your name? It can't be that the first operator said Dave and the second operator said, my name is Paul, right? So that wouldn't go. So we give each account an identity of some sort with just like very, very simple information. And when you click on this box, it opens up a new window. And in that window, you find the identity questions. For example, it says here, account questions. These are account questions, okay. So there's some more information in there. First, the identity questions I just spoke about. The name of the account behind the account officially is William, right? Where are you from? Arizona. What's your occupation? What do you do for a living? I'm a farmer. Where do you live? In Phoenix, which is also Arizona. But so it doesn't happen really. But if it was ever to happen that someone asks you about who you are, this is where you would find it. Additionally, we spoke about the star in front of the name, so it had a previous name. That's where you find the previous name. The previous account past name is Dana009. And then the account question, how did you hear about us? Who's your referral? And so on. Those are also to be found here, even though they're also to be found down here. So I'm not going to get into it for now about the account questions. I just want to point out that there's information about the identity behind the account, as well as the possible past names listed here in those sections, past names and identity questions. Then here in parentheses, it sort of says the state of the account. So right now it's playing. If I was to decide that I'm going to sit the account out, then I would say sit out. If it's observing, then it's observing. I'm sure if I go here on queue, it says handed. Playing, let's see. Preparing. So the table is preparing. That makes sense. See, observing. Queue's playing. So it shows the state of the table. The table is either playing, preparing, or waiting, I guess. Which goes back, which is basically the same thing, or for something very similar that says it on the bottom here on queue. It would say that preparing. So I guess it's very similar. These are how many players are playing. We have 9 seats available, right? 9 seats available, and 9 players are sitting on there. If I find another table that has 9 seats, you could see it here, 9 seats available, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players right now. Looks like we had 8, maybe we lost 1 in just the last hand, even though it would say we would stand up. But I think you get the idea. That's 6 out of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ah, there you go. So 6 players, but it has 8 seats. These are the rules of the club, which you can also find here. So the 50 stands for 50 hands minimum to play before leaving. Warning before leaving is 20. And then how often we have to warn? Always. If we are winning, we always have to warn, right? But the same rules are basically displayed down here. It's just here in a very short form. Then this here is the game we're playing, No Limit Hold'em. This is the big blind that we're playing, which is $1. Then it shows the result, how many hands, and our stack size. Probably from this part, what we'll be using the most is just the name, which you can also see on the left-hand side. But if anything, it's this identity question box, because you may have to look up a previous name or you may have to say something. And that was it for section 3.